Good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Dennis Mariano. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Transformational Healing Seminar. It's always a good opportunity for us to connect with each other, with our community, and so that we can build bridges and uplift each other so that we can have a better life, a better community, and a better world. And those are the values that we share with the people in our practice and our community at large. So our seminar this evening is Let Your Body Be Your Guide, or Beginning Muscle Testing. So before we get started, our mission is to provide the best technology in holistic health and life care, meaning we're always upgrading our educational system, the techniques that we use, so that we're always staying on the cutting edge of the healing, the holistic healing field. Our catalyzing statement or statement of purpose is to inspire people to live thriving, extraordinary lives so they can in turn be a beacon of hope for other people that they can connect with. So those of you online, please type in your questions and comments. And those of you here, just please participate. So muscle response testing, Dr. George Goodhart was the discoverer of it back in 1964. He was honored for many awards outside of his profession as a doctor of chiropractic, because he was also very connected to the community, which is, again, what we're attempting to espouse in our practice. So muscle testing accesses the inner being of who you truly are on the unconscious level. You know, we are basically vibrational beings. We are vibrational interpreters. Everything that we see, hear, taste, smell, and touch is all interpreted through our senses, which is nothing but vibration. So the most important thing is it's run through our nervous system. That's how we interact with our world. And that's why it's so critical, as we'll delve into it in a few minutes, why the nervous system being in balance is such a critical factor when it comes to being healthy and expressing life. Dr. David Hawkins had written books with regard to the resources in muscle testing, because people that are not aware of the types of work that we do have questions, and there's a chasm between their current knowledge and what the most advanced knowledge in terms of the techniques that we have, because they're not aware of the research. So Dr. David Hawkins had written many different books for the last over 20 years. When I think he passed maybe 5 years ago. He was an MD, PhD, really intelligent man, much of a genius. If you read many of his books, he had written 12 books, and one of them is Power versus Force, and it discusses in detail muscle testing. Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt is an MD, PhD as well, and he's been celebrating 46 years of his medical holistic practice since 1975 until now. He does everything through applied kinesiology or muscle testing. Dr. Dan Monti also is our right-hand person. He's the assistant teacher for a neuro-emotional technique, which is a technique we use to allow the body to delete files of unconscious emotions that affect your overall health, that leads to pathologies and chronic pain. He also is a big supporter of muscle testing. There's a book by Dr. Jim Oshman which describes in detail, and the title of it is Energy Medicine, the Scientific Basis, and he explains to us how there are very subtle fields in our bodies that allow us to have a communication that is beyond just the logical portion of who we are. Lynn McTaggart, The Field, as well, is another book that discusses the subtle energy fields that surrounds our bodies that we don't necessarily see or feel, but they are in existence. Dr. Barbara Ann Brennan, The Hands of Light. Dr. Brennan, she used to be a NASA scientist who studied atmospheres, and all of a sudden, as she got older, she began to develop her extrasensory senses became heightened, where she was able to then see auras around people. Subsequent from that, as she developed these skills even further, she was able to then create a school of healing called Barbara Brennan School of Healing that allows people to be trained to magnify the outcomes of their extrasensory perception that is not normally used in the traditional model. Dr. Robert Lanza as well is another MD who talks more about the quantum mechanical view of reality, and he discusses in detail the science behind how the body is, number one, follows the Newtonian model of reality, which is, you know, billiard balls and so on, and molecules, and it also follows the quantum mechanical model of reality, which is more fields of frequencies. Rupert Sheldrake is another person that talks about the science behind the fields of the body that we can access. So there are actually 6 interferences that interfere with our capacity to be healed and or our capacity to express health. We always get exposed to, in this world, physical stress, emotional stress, and chemical stress. What happens then when these stresses accumulate in our nervous system, especially through the spine, the muscles, the ligaments, and tendons, after a while, the system cannot no longer adapt. So when it's not in an adaptive state, the body goes into what's called sympathetic dominance mode, and the body begins to decay over time, and it's not able to adapt, heal, and repair. So the principle is that if you have 100% connection between your brain and the organs in the body and the muscles, you have 100% function. However, when you become stressed from life experiences, the connection between the brain and the body and the tissue cell becomes decreased, and that leads then to the inhibition of the expression of life that the body. So here's the thing. If you have any condition at all, what'll happen is that there's always 2 parts for it. For example, let's say you have an infection somewhere in the body. If you have that infection, yes, you know, if it's the body has become so weakened because of physical, emotional, and chemical stress and repetitive negative thinking, which then creates hormones of stress in the body, which weakens the immune system, then the organs then will begin to malfunction. Yes, if the body has gotten to the point where it can no longer repair itself because it's got too far behind, then you need medical intervention, like, you know, any medications that may be necessary to lower that infection. However, the most important information that you need to address is that the drugs will only buy you time, but you have to be sure that you address the cause of what happened, why the immune system became weak to begin with. Yes, you need to buy time with the medication. However, you need to address the cause, whether it's physical, emotional, and chemical, so you can then get back to optimal health. Because if you only do this one part, then what happens? You're only buying time, you're not addressing the cause, you get a relapse, or it can actually get worse and worse. Because anytime you interfere with the body's capacity to heal by suppressing the symptoms and not addressing the cause or causes, then you're going to get behind the 8th ball and actually suffer more dire consequences because you're not giving the body the necessary repair mechanisms. So Dr. Henry Windsor, back in 1921, we always use this as research information to illustrate what happens when your nervous system is not functioning optimally. So he identified, as a pathologist, people that have died of different causes, and whatever the pathology was, he would take whatever that organ system that caused that sickness in the body for that person to contribute to their death. He would take that organ, trace the nerve back to the spine, and whatever that part of the spine, here's what he found. The corresponding nerve root and spinal segment had either the most amount of arthritis or the most amount of curvature, which then leads you to the conclusion that if you damage the spine, you damage the nervous system, you end up damaging your health, because it's a domino effect that happens as a consequence of neglecting spinal hygiene. When we're all born, everything was optimal in health and we had 100% function. However, when we have what's called a vertebral subluxation complex or spinal misalignment, the body then, the nerve system becomes interfered with. And think about what happens with that. When the nerves don't work properly, your body malfunctions, you end up losing your health, and then consequently you end up having symptoms, weak muscles, pain, suffering, and other pathologies. So the purpose of muscle testing is fivefold. It's important to always establish priority with regard to when the body is expressing symptoms. And we'll discuss that in detail in a moment. Also, you avoid trial and error, where you have more specificity in terms of what the body needs in order to restore itself to healthy functioning, to healthy function. So it also prevents confusion. For example, the traditional model, the conventional model, because of the standard of care, if you have this particular symptom, whether you have mom, dad, the kids, let's say they assume that you have, a cold and you have a bacterial infection or something, they will give you a medication to treat everybody the same way, when in muscle testing, it allows you the more specificity and see what the parameters are that allow that. So the body then, each individual gets the proper amount of individual care and specificity for that particular person. It also identifies your body's needs as opposed to having a cookie cutter approach that then negates the capacity for the body to be individualized. And what we experience is that the more you allow yourself to communicate with the body's non-verbal, unconscious communication channels, what we find is that the more you do that, the closer you become to your body, and then it'll be there to serve you when you need it. So how does it work? Dr. Masaru Emoto was a scientist who did research where he studied the molecular structure of water and how water, when exposed to words, thoughts, sounds, and intentions, can actually, what they can look like on a crystal basis. Because the thing is, your body is 80% water. When you're a baby, it's 90% water. If you're 80% water, think about the characteristics of the hormones and the chemicals and the capacity of the body to heal. So he exposed water to words, and he took a picture in an electron microscope of what the crystals look like when they were exposed to particular words. This, you'll see here, it says thank you, and that's what the crystal looks like. When you tell somebody you fool, this is what the crystal looks like. So it's really critical to have an awareness that every thought that you have creates a vibrational frequency that puts it out into the universe, going through your heart. And when you put that frequency out, and the universe then will synchronize with that tuning and revert back into you not only experiences or manifestations as a consequence of those thought patterns, which will then influence your life in the present moment. The problem is, most of us are not aware of that rule, the law of attraction, so therefore what we do is we live, as Dr. Dispenza would say, in the familiar past, where we keep repeating the same thought patterns of somebody injuring you or somebody upsetting you. And even though it happened 20 years ago, you keep thinking about it again and again. And the principle of the body is that the body doesn't know the difference between something imagined or real. It only knows the experience that you're having now. So if you keep living your familiar past, eventually, unconsciously, it becomes so ingrained in your nervous system that the body now, the mind now becomes the body, and you can no longer separate it. And then every time you think about that emotion, you keep, and you'll see people, and this is what Dr. Dispenza shared with us, you'll see people having, first of all, a bad day, but if they continue to think about the same situation, then all of a sudden they have the temperament that they have. and all of a sudden you have the same temperament of being mad at somebody or being, complaining about something all the time. That becomes now your personality. And then if you continue to have and magnify that again and again and again through decades, now becomes your beingness of what people believe you to be and what you believe yourself to be. Again, the body, the mind now has become the body, and you can no longer separate it, and that's really, really difficult, because then Dr. Bruce Lipton said that we think about 60 to 90,000 thoughts every single day, but only 5% of it is conscious, and that most of it is unconscious. And so we're not really making decisions in the present moment, but we keep repeating the same patterns again and again of attracting into our lives what we think about. So we really have to be careful, as Dr. Emoto describes here in this experiment, what we think about, because it manifests in life. And also when you, let's do it, here's you're beautiful, here's the word dirty, and you can see what the crystals look like, or the structure of the water, and do it, and let's do it. And these are peace, the word peace, the word hope, the word despair, the word war. If you say something to somebody like, you make me sick, this is what the structure of the molecules of the water looks like. Amazing grace, love and gratitude. And if you expose water to music, you can also have different experiences. This is Beethoven, this is Mozart. You have Vivaldi, winter, pop music, heavy metal music. Wonder what the rap music looks like. You have different types of classical music experiences of the molecules as well. This is spring water in Japan. This is in Lourdes, France. And also, this is the water. It was in a contaminated dam in Japan before prayers, and then they prayed over the water, and it actually changed the molecular structure of it to represent something that's more appealing. So what we'd normally do with the muscle testing is that you would hold the arm up of the person and push on it and allow the person to resist. You only use about 2 to 5 pounds of pressure. You can use the hand like this, or you can go like this as well. So, for example, if you were to say, okay, I'm wearing a blue shirt or a blue jacket, the body will go strong. If you say, I'm wearing a pink jacket, the body would actually go weak. And if we have somebody to demonstrate that on, that's actually the experience that you would have. If you watch all our other videos, the previous videos we had where we actually had people to demonstrate this, you'll have a more full experience as a consequence of that. Another thing you could test as well, once you become more adapted to the muscle testing, is you can think of something wonderful and then muscle test, and you'll find that that actually allows you to be strong, because your thought patterns again create either weakness or strength in your body. If you think of something that is upsetting or makes you angry or makes you fearful, that weakens your system. And towards the end of the presentation, we will describe to you the map of consciousness that was shared with us with Dr. David Hawkins, and how you can actually calibrate your frequencies to see where you are at any moment in time, and slowly over time train yourself to vibrate on a conscious level to a higher frequency, so you can get better outcomes in your health and in your life as well. We can also do a muscle spindle test. If you contract the muscle will go weak. If you spread the muscle apart, it will go strong as well. You can also do the O-ring test. If you do this, you can say yes, you can say no, you can say yes, you can say no, and that's something that you can measure once you are able to communicate through biofeedback. This is really nothing but a biofeedback mechanism where your body is talking to you on an unconscious level. Another way to do it is to actually have another person be here, and you can try to separate their fingers, and then you can, again, yes or no would be an indicator muscle. Or you could use your own fingers like this. You can say yes, you can say no, yes and no, and you can muscle test different things as well. Another way to measure is the finger stickiness or smoothness, yes or no. Or you can do what Dr. Corin taught us, the occipital drop. You can go yes, or you can go no, yes, no. You can do surrogate testing as well, because what you'll find is that, and let me get the doll real quick here. We actually have the Rosie doll. You can see here. So if you touch one end of it, there's a conductive metal button there, and you touch the other one too.
Ring around the rosy, pocket full.
You can see that it starts to sing.
Ring around.
So you can, because the body is made of electricity. That's why if you go to a cardiologist, they can do an EKG, find out the condition of the heart. You can do an electroencephalogram, which they do us in neurology, to find out if there's something wrong with the brain. In our practice, we do what's called a surface EMG, which you can apply to the musculature of the spine to evaluate if there's any tension as a consequence of subluxation complex. So if you have a little baby, they can't obviously muscle test. You can use the electrical fields of the mother to allow you to scan that particular child. Now also, if somebody has an injury, let's say they have a shoulder injury, it's going to be very difficult for them to do that. You can use another person as a muscle test, a surrogate. So things you could test are nutrients. For example, if you have a vitamin, an herb, or anything that you want to take, you can actually muscle test that. If it stays strong, then the body will say, okay, that's favorable, that's something I can utilize. If it goes weak, then the body at that point in time, at an unconscious level, when it matches the frequency of the nutrients that you're holding or the food that you're holding, then you can then validate if it's something you should utilize or not. You can also even dose it by asking the body how much of something you should be taking. Toiletries is another thing. You know, unfortunately in today's world, there are many things that are additives and preservatives that can actually be harmful to your body because you're absorbing it. So you can test your soap, your deodorant, your lotions that you put on your body. Especially women, they like to put lotions on there so their skin is soft. Hair products and so on. You know, just muscle test it to see if the body can be favorable or not favorable. Any beverages that you may want to drink, you can muscle test as well, so the body can let you know if it's something that would be favorable for you or not. You can test your cell phone. You know, ideally you should not be putting your cell phone on your head, because then if you muscle test that, it will actually go weak, and you can create those new vibrational frequencies that can influence your brain on a negative level. You know, microwaves, TV, Wi-Fi, and so on, you need to muscle test that. You could probably get close to your Wi-Fi signal transducer and get close to it and see how it influences you, especially with the 5G that we have right now. Chemicals in your household, if you have any products from household that are not natural, you should muscle test those to evaluate the effects of drug and alcohol in your health. You can muscle test, see how much your body can tolerate. That's really important as well. So if you have any pain and other symptoms or immune suppression challenges, you can always find out what the body needs, because a myriad of different symptoms, right? I think there's like 4,000 diseases in the ICD, you know, manual of classifications of diseases, if not more. And there's just so many different things that could look like something else. So therefore, if you can muscle test it, you get the body an opportunity to find out what could be causing it, or what the causes are. It's either physical, emotional, or chemical, and what is the priority of what needs to be done. I just scanned somebody today, one of the last patients we had this evening. The first thing that showed up instead of an adjustment is dehydration. And sure enough, she said, yeah, you know, I tend to be thirsty all the time. I don't get really to, you know, test my water intake. I just drink when I feel like it, but I'm usually very dehydrated. The second priority that showed up was sleep. And she goes, yeah, I was at a concert. It was 2 a.m. before I got home, and then I had to get up early to go to work. So the body has an awareness of these on an unconscious level, but if you are able to harness your awareness and focus on muscle testing and evaluating what the body needs, you can get really close to what the body needs as possible, and then it gives you an opportunity to have priority on how to take care of it. So Our holistic approach to balancing your nervous system is, number one, the first thing we do is clear the nervous system through spinal analysis, subluxation analysis, and removing that subluxation in a very gentle way so the messages are coming through from the brain to the body. Because if the messages are garbled, then the body cannot really give you the information that it needs, because it's like having a kink in a garden hose or having a bad Wi-Fi signal. So then after that, the extremities also are a conduit to allowing energy to flow through your body. So if you can check the extremities, the lower extremities, the upper extremities, and also we also check you for the position of subluxation, meaning if you're subluxated because the spine is misaligned, we need to check you when you're laying down, we need to check you when you're sitting up, we need to check you when you're facing down, and we also need to check you when you're standing up, because those are all different positions of subluxation where the body then is in a different mode in terms of how gravity is being distributed. If there are any misalignments and it's interfering with the nervous system's capacity to express itself, then you're not functioning at an optimal level. So it's very important to do those things. We also then check for any emotions that could be associated with the body's capacity to heal. There's a whole seminar that we have in NET. As a matter of fact, that's next Tuesday at 6:30. We're going to go in detail how to mitigate anxiety and chronic depression using a technique called NET. We're going to go into dive deep into that. So make sure you lean in next time and understand the mechanism of how that affects you. The next thing we do is when you have these emotions that stress the body, the organs actually become stressed. In Chinese acupuncture, the organs actually hold emotions, and also there are elements that allow you to negate or detox the organ system, where the body is called the body memory indicator, where the body has memories of these emotions. For example, the kidney has the remedy that's associated with that is water remedy, meaning the element. So if you then allow that, if the body's asking for it through the muscle test, gives your body an opportunity to detox those things proactively before it begins to harm you. And we also check the immune system all the time. The immune system, with their different meridians that we can scan to see if there's a virus or there's a main immune system weakness, if there's a parasite, the ileocecal valve, and also all the different organ systems, the gut especially, 80% of your guts in your intestines, the enteric nervous system. So by checking the body in a proactive way through the muscle test, you can really be confident that your body is always functioning at its best, because you're checking many different systems instead of just how you feel, which is an effect as opposed to being caused. And nutritional deficiencies as well, we can scan for nutrients. Again, we mentioned that already. So again, the reason why we do muscle testing is to establish your body's priority for healing. We talked about that already as an example in terms of, needing water, needing sleep before even the adjustment. And also it avoids trial and error. So this way you're not going, oh, let's try this blue pill, let's try the red pill. Oh, it didn't work because your symptoms are still there, so let's try something else. It takes, life's too short, and I think we need to be more specific in how we address things in our life. It prevents confusion. Again, if you have a mom and dad and 3 kids, you don't just give them all the same medication. You can identify if the dad needs something. Maybe he's been traveling, he needs more rest. The mom needs something else. The 3 kids need something else in terms of nutrients, homeopathic. So you can really be very specific in terms of what's happening. And also it's very specific to you as an individual at that particular point in time. For example, Wednesday is going to be different than Tuesday depending on how your body responds to what the needs are. The most important thing is the more you communicate with your body, the more it begins to trust you, and that if you ask it what it needs and you give it, then the communication and the relationship becomes so much more harmonious. This way, when you call on it, when you're in dire straits, you can respond to it much, much quicker. So again, there's 6 interferences. We talked about those that we need to address. And just the effect of proper nerve system balance over time is really critical. This is Dr. William Perot, PhD. He graduated from Vermont, MS degree. He got his PhD in biological sciences, postdoctorate in North Carolina State. He was the chief of cancer prevention at New York Preventive Medicine Institute, also the professor of medicine and environmental health at New York University. 1979, he had his in biochemistry degree. He was also an adjunct professor and also National Institute of Health, Environmental Health Sciences. So what he did is that he took 107 individuals and he compared them to a cancer group. For example, people with cancer, a clinical diagnosis of cancer. He measured their immune system. There were 22 different parameters from what I can remember. Two of them, one we'll discuss just for the sake of time. One of them is the enzyme called glutathione S transferase. So if you have high levels of those enzymes, the body can detoxify and you have better capacity of detoxification, you're healthier. The other one is called unscheduled DNA synthesis, meaning if your DNA becomes damaged and your immune system is strong, you can repair the DNA, so therefore then you don't produce what are called oncogenes, which is then what creates cancer cells. So he measured these 107 individuals. He measured the immunity of the people with cancer, and he measured the people with chiropractic care for a period of 5 years, and he measured the control group, no cancer but no chiropractic care. And he found that, and also by the way, the people were genetically normal. That's no obvious genetic reason for increased resistance or susceptibility to disease. So here's what he found. The chiropractic group that had chiropractic care for 5 years for non-symptomatic care, but to get their nervous system balanced so the body can be in optimum capacity to adapt, had 400 greater immune competence than people with cancer or other serious diseases. The chiropractic group, in comparison to the people without chiropractic care but no symptoms, the chiropractic group had 200% greater immune competence than the people that did not receive chiropractic care. Surprisingly, despite a wide range of ages in the study, the immune competence did not show any decline with age and was uniform throughout the entire group. Other studies subsequently from there is DNA repair. We find that people under chiropractic care, their DNA repair or thiol levels are much higher than people that are not under chiropractic care with a malfunctioning nervous system. One of my favorite articles from Discovery magazine back in 2016. This was a study in the University of Virginia, and if you read, it says they'll have to rewrite the textbooks. And you can see there it says, it's a stunning discovery that overturns decades of textbook teaching. Researchers at the School of Medicine have determined that the brain is directly connected to the immune system by vessels previously thought not to exist. I really did not believe there were structures in the body that we were not aware of. I thought the body was mapped, said Jonathan Kipnis, a professor of neuroscience and director of the University of Center for Brain Immunology and Glia. How these vessels could have escaped detection when the lymphatic system had been so thoroughly mapped throughout the body is surprising on its own. So as you can see, science is always evolving. And that's what we always have to be careful with regard to, believing that, something is settled. The more we understand, the more research we have, the more we begin to understand the body. Here's the most important thing. This was discovered in 2016. The body hasn't changed, the biology hasn't changed, and yet we're discovering that the body is not a separate entity. The body doesn't know the difference between an arm and a leg or a liver. I mean, it has that awareness, but your brain, is, according to the research, the brain, lymphatic system, immune system are all one and the same thing. And that's the reason why when you take care of your brain and nervous system, the communication is connected, you have optimum capacity to heal, repair, and grow. That's the reason why people in our practice receive the care that we provide for them, not just because they have symptoms, but give the body's capacity to repair and adapt to the environment. So the key to successful muscle testing is basic what? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Our next seminar this coming Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 28th, is Tired of Dealing with Chronic Anxiety and Depression? Learn about the holistic approach to healing yourself naturally through NET. At 6:30, we'll see you then. Again, mission statement and catalyzing statement. Anybody online, those of you that are watching, please type in your questions so we can have a conversation. And if you found any value or inspired by something that we mentioned to you today, that we shared with you today, please comment, like, and share, and connect with us too to our website. We have a Facebook page, Mariano Holistic Life Center. That's our fan page. Also, we have another page, Dr. Dennis Mariano, without a space in between. We're on YouTube. We have a lot of videos on there. We're on Instagram also with 2 places, Dr. Dennis Mariano and Mariano Holistic Life Center. And also, again, our website is available. So, to close this evening, and thank you again so much for being with us, this is the map of consciousness explained. And this is so critical in today's world because the challenges that we are being exposed to on every level of our lives is so insurmountable right now, and it is so aggressive that if you're not careful at calibrating where you are at any moment in time, you can become a victim of the environment and therefore succumb to it, as opposed to being in control of your emotions, thought patterns, and chemical reactions in the body as a consequence of that by being conscious. Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness, you can see here that anything below the frequency or number of 200 will weaken you. Anything above 200 will be strengthening. Anything below will require force as opposed to having power. And that's where the book was, power versus force. You don't need to push. If you have to push against something, that means you're using finite methods of pushing against something, when really the law of attraction says to you that the path of least resistance, by not struggling against anything, gives you the best opportunity to manifest things into your life by allowing things to happen as opposed to resisting it and working hard. So for example, if you have feelings right now of anxiety, that's the emotional anxiety, that calibrates at 100. The level then is fear. Your life view is that life is frightening. Your God view is God is punitive, therefore I'm sick because so-and-so. And the process then, the way you act then is withdrawing. So you can see here, you can study this and look at this online. The higher you go into the levels, for example, if you go above 200, you're now in the experience of enabling. God is enabling. Life view is life is satisfactory. Level is neutral. The scale is 250. Your emotion is trusting. Everything's going to turn out right just for you all the time. And therefore, you allow things to release. Which connects me to what Dr. Wayne Dyer says, that be open to everything, but be attached to nothing. If you can go above 200, you'll have more capacity to be able to express those experiences. The higher you go in the scale, for example, the highest level you can reach would be between 700 to 100 log value. You can then, the level of enlightenment, the emotion is ineffable, the process of pure consciousness, life view is life is, and God view is I am one with God, because we are always connected to source energy. Without source energy, we are not here. And even if you go below that, just even the feeling of joy, the scale of 500, the emotion of reverence, and the process of always revelation, revealing things to you as you live your life. Life is benign, and God is loving. So if you look at this chart, it would really be, my recommendation would be to download this chart, take a look at it, and every day at any point in time, check in with yourself. Let's look at the chart. Where am I calibrating? And if you're not, the best technology to do it is to take a pause. Don't allow that lower frequency level emotion to gain momentum by just pausing it. It's like a train going 250 miles an hour. You can't just stop it because the momentum is so strong. You have to actually wait for that to get off. The best thing you could do, because you're using your mind, not a physical way, is to get on another train that hasn't even gone yet by thinking of a different emotion. The cool thing about what Dr. David Hawkins mentioned and shared with us is that somebody that's functioning and vibrating at a high level up to 500, 600. One person vibrating at that frequency can negate a million below 200. So it behooves all of us to always check in with ourselves in our present moment consciousness. Where are we vibrating? And what are the strategies that we need to do to employ so that we're always checking in and vibrating here so we can then be influential in our lives. So again, this goes right along with our statement of purpose, which is to inspire people to live extraordinary, thriving lives so they can be a beacon of hope for others. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Dr. Dennis Mariano. Until we see you again on our next seminar, have a good night.